You ever get that sinking feeling? Not the slow one that creeps in at night when the world's quiet and your mind won't shut up. No. I mean the punch in the gut, lights on, midday free fall that hits you while you're standing in your own damn kitchen. That's where I was, just trying to be cheerful for once. We were having breakfast. Eggs, toast, that organic jam she insists on even though she barely eats it. I was just trying to make conversation, trying to pretend we were still normal. So, I say, all bright-eyed and dumb, your brother's wedding's tomorrow, right? She doesn't look up. Just this lazy blink. This ugh, you again? Expression. It was last week, she says flat. Then, without even a beat, she reaches into her purse, pulls out her phone, and starts swiping like she's looking for a damn coupon code. Then she turns it around. A photo. No, a dozen photos. Her family. Her sister. Her parents. Her brother in a tux, arms wrapped around his new bride. Laughter frozen in pixel-perfect clarity. Glasses raised. Her standing there in a champagne dress, smiling like she didn't have a care in the world. And me? Nowhere. I stood there. Still. Silent. Because what the hell do you say to that? Oh, I muttered, half choking. Guess my invite got lost in the mail. Then came the laugh. That smug, rotten little laugh from her sister across the kitchen island. She was visiting for the weekend, of course, like a parasite that made itself too comfortable. Her mother, right beside her, was sipping coffee like it was a comedy show. Didn't we tell you? The sister said, with that syrupy voice that always carried a dagger underneath. Her mom nodded, lips curling up like she was enjoying the taste of it all. No, you damn well didn't, I said. But it came out too soft, too delayed. Like I was still trying to process whether this was real life or some twisted prank. She didn't even flinch. Didn't say sorry. Didn't explain. Just said something like, it was a small wedding. We didn't think you'd want to come. Oh, I didn't want to come? That's rich. I've spent years dragging myself to their boring family dinners, pretending to enjoy stories about uncles I never met, surviving passive-aggressive jabs about how I fold laundry wrong. And now I'm not even worth a damn seat at the table? You know, it was in that exact moment, while her sister giggled into her mimosa and her mother whispered something behind her hand, that something inside me shifted. A kind of click. Like a deadbolt locking behind me. Something hard. Cold. Permanent. See, up until then, I thought maybe things could be fixed. That she was just going through something. That maybe we had drifted but could still paddle our way back to shore if we both tried. But this wasn't drifting. This was mutiny. They weren't just excluding me. They were laughing while they did it. Cutting me out like I was never part of the picture at all. And the kicker? She didn't even have the decency to look guilty. Just scrolled to another photo and showed her sister, like nothing happened. That was the day I stopped playing the fool. But I didn't yell. I didn't throw a fit. I just stood up, rinsed my plate, and said I had errands to run. I kissed her cheek, more out of habit than affection, and left. But in my head, plans started forming. Quiet ones. No screaming matches. No ultimatums. I was done trying to fix something built on rot. I was going to make her feel what it's like to be invisible. A month later, her mom called. Apparently, payments for the condo renovation had stopped. She sounded panicked, trying to be polite but failing miserably. There must be a mistake, she said. We're getting notices, suspended work, unpaid invoices. What's going on? I let the silence hang just long enough. Then I smiled and said, didn't I tell you? Click. That was the last time I took a call from her. You ever realize something was wrong only in hindsight? Looking back, it wasn't just the wedding. That was the lightning strike, sure. But the clouds had been brewing for a while. I was just too stupid or maybe too hopeful to read the forecast. The signs were there. Little ones. Like the way she started locking her phone. Not just passcodes, Face ID. But not mine. Hers. Always. And she carried it everywhere, like a damn pacemaker. Into the shower. To the backyard. Even when she was doing yoga on the patio, the phone was always within reach, like some sacred relic. Or how she started getting real particular about her schedule. I have book club on Wednesdays, she'd say. Book club, right? Except I never once saw a book. What I did see was her coming home with her hair undone, makeup smudged just so, not in a tired way, but in a post-battle glow kind of way. Then there was the money. She had her own account, always did. We'd agreed on that. Independence, boundaries, all that modern marriage fluff. But the thing was, the repairs on her parents' condo? I was footing the bill. Generously. Willingly, even. I didn't mind helping out. until they started treating me like I was the help. I started watching closely, stopped auto-paying the invoices, made a few polite calls to the contractor. Turns out, her mom had requested upgrades, fancy countertops, high-end appliances, all in my name. And when the payment stopped, guess who got the calls? Yeah, but here's where it gets fun. I didn't argue, didn't confront her. Instead, I made a copy of every invoice, every change request, every receipt that had my name and signature forged because, yeah, she'd apparently gotten good at imitating it. I compiled them, nice and neat, in a folder labeled for my lawyer. Because one thing they didn't count on? I'm not the yelling type. I'm the documenting type. 2 weeks after the phone call from her mother, my wife came home buzzing with that fake energy she used when she was trying to seem interesting. "You'll never believe who I ran into," she said. I didn't even ask. Just looked up from my laptop and waited. "David. From the wedding." He says hi. "Said it was weird you weren't there." David. Her cousin. One of the few decent people in that Viper pit. He was looking out for me, in his own awkward way. "Yeah," I said. "Weird." She tilted her head. "You're not still upset about that, are you?" I smiled. "No." Because upset is temporary. What I was feeling now, that was something colder, more enduring. See, I wasn't planning revenge in the cinematic, over-the-top sense. No, I wasn't going to expose her at a dinner party or key someone's car. I was going to subtract myself from her life piece by piece, until she was left with nothing but her own reflection, and no one to blame but herself. The next week, I opened a separate checking account. Quietly, shifted my direct deposits there. I left just enough in our joint account to cover groceries and utilities, just so she wouldn't notice. Yet, I called the contractor again, told him to halt all work. Said there was an ongoing dispute over authorization. Legal words. That got his attention. He sent over a pause work notice that same day. 3 hours later, she stormed into the kitchen, holding the letter like it was dipped in acid. "What's this?" she demanded. I sipped my coffee. "Looks like a notice." "You canceled the repairs?" "No. I paused them." "Why would you do that?" I shrugged. "Thought you didn't need me for family stuff anymore." Her jaw clenched. "That's not fair. Neither is missing your brother's wedding because no one thought I mattered." Dead silence. She tried to play the guilt card then, tears welling up, voice cracking. "It wasn't like that." I tilted my head. "Then what was it like?" Nothing. No answer. Just quiet fury and a slammed door. That night, she stayed in the guest room. Claimed it was to cool off. But I knew better. She wasn't cooling off. She was calculating. But here's the part she didn't expect. So was I. They say people only lie when the truth threatens something they care about. Which meant my wife had a hell of a lot more to hide than I originally thought. See, after the guest room stunt, she tried to play it cool. Business as usual. "Do you want something from the store? Have you seen my earbuds?" Like we were some sitcom couple who had a tiff over burnt toast. Meanwhile, I kept playing dumb, calm, boring, invisible. But beneath that still surface, I was digging. Quietly. I started with her phone. No, I didn't crack it, clone it, or pull some hacker nonsense. I didn't need to. She was sloppy, complacent, comfortable in her illusion of control. One morning, she left it on the counter while she showered. Notifications lit up the screen. One caught my eye. "So glad last night wasn't awkward winking face." No name. Just the message preview. I didn't need a name. I already had suspicions. There's this guy, Todd. Her friend from work. Always in the background. Always too comfortable texting her at night. They'd get drinks with the team every other Friday, but somehow she never mentioned the names of the other teammates. Just the group. Todd had this fake laugh energy like he practiced his smile in the mirror. The kind of guy who overuses the word bro and wears cologne like it's body armor. I hated him the moment I met him. I remember the first time they hugged goodbye in front of me. It was too long. Not scandalous, not over the top, just a second too long. That subtle pause. Like they were making sure it meant more than it should. I didn't say anything back then, but I remembered. So I did what any self-respecting, quiet vengeance-seeking husband would do. I went to her office. Not to confront. Just to observe. I dropped off lunch. Unannounced. Claimed I was in the area. Brought her favorite chicken Caesar wrap, no croutons, dressing on the side. She looked surprised, almost irritated. "Oh," she said. "You didn't call." "Nope. Thought I'd surprise you." You could practically hear the gears grinding behind her eyes. Todd wasn't there. But her assistant? The kind of sweet, Chatty in turn that people forget to notice? She was. I made polite small talk. Asked about the office vibe. And in the middle of it, I dropped his name casually. Is Todd in today? Her face twitched. Just for a second. No, he's working remote this week, she said too fast. Funny. Her phone said he was there last night. I smiled, thanked her, and left. But now I had what I needed. That night, I went online. Hired a service. Discreet, legal, and expensive. Background checks. Digital footprint mapping. I gave them two names, hers and Todd's. I said I was looking for signs of inappropriate behavior between coworkers. Didn't even need to say I was the husband. The guy on the other end chuckled and said, yeah, we get a lot of that. What came back? Wasn't a smoking gun. Not yet. But there were embers. Hotel bookings under his name that lined up suspiciously with her overnight conferences. Meal charges on company cards. 2 guests, not 1. Flight records that didn't match the company itinerary she gave me. Nothing concrete enough for court, but more than enough for truth. Meanwhile, I started cutting deeper. She asked why the credit card wasn't working anymore. I told her I had to freeze it, possible fraud alert. Then I handed her one of those prepaid cards with $200 on it and said we'd use that for a bit, just until it cleared up. She faked a smile and said, oh, okay. That was the moment she realized something was changing. She just didn't know how much. And then came the kicker. Todd's wife messaged me. Yep, Todd, the slick-smiled snake, was married. She found me through a tagged photo from some company party. Said she had suspicions too. Said she'd seen messages. Screenshots. Even a receipt for a spa weekend she thought was a work event. Until she found a red bra in his overnight bag. And guess what? It wasn't hers. We arranged a call. What she shared confirmed what I already knew. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I was married to a liar. And she was screwing a man who was cheating on his wife, too. It was poetic, in a trashy tabloid kind of way. Except this wasn't TV. This was my life. And I wasn't about to let it end with a shrug and a divorce settlement. Funny thing about betrayal. It can isolate you, sure. But it can also unite you with the most unlikely people. Todd's wife, Claire, was sharp. Cool voice, clipped sentences. The kind of woman who didn't cry anymore. Not because she wasn't hurt, but because she was past wasting tears on people who didn't deserve them. She'd been married to Todd for 8 years. No kids, just a mortgage, a dog, and the usual illusions of stability. She'd suspected something for months, but like me, she played it calm. Collected, watching the inconsistencies pile up. Hotel points that didn't match his travel. Late-night texts that made him smile and turn away. A scent that wasn't hers on his collar. And now? Now she was ready to burn it all down, methodically. We agreed on a plan. We weren't going to storm into their offices or pull some messy confrontation. No shouting in lobbies, no screaming voicemails. That would just give them something to point fingers at. Crazy exes, they'd say. No, we were going to make the truth undeniable, like a wall closing in on them. First step, evidence consolidation. Claire sent me screenshots. Dozens. Messages between my wife and Todd. Some were flirtatious. Some explicit, emotionally, not sexually. You know the kind. I feel more alive with you. You understand me like no one else. Gag-worthy, sure. But more importantly, damning. Then came photos. Selfies they'd taken at a cabin she never told me she visited. The kicker? One of them had my wife in the sweater I bought her last Christmas. The one she said itched too much to ever wear. Wearing it for him. I sent Claire the hotel receipts I'd found, the travel overlaps. We mapped them out like detectives building a caseboard. Pins, threads, timelines. By the end of the week, we had enough to make an entire slideshow. But we weren't ready to drop the hammer. Not yet. Meanwhile, I kept my act up at home. I brought her coffee in the morning, kissed her forehead, asked about her day. Every lie she told me after that tasted like an unintentional confession. I've got a late strategy meeting. I'm staying with Mom this weekend. I forgot to charge my phone. Sorry I missed your call. Each one, a tiny needle stitching her own shroud. And every time she lied, I made a note of it. Dates, times, what she was wearing. Building a ledger of betrayal, my own twisted version of wedding vows, written in silence. Claire and I met once, in person. Neutral territory, quiet cafe downtown, back booth. I brought my laptop. She brought a file folder thick with printouts. We exchanged pleasantries like coworkers, not partners in vengeance. She said something I still think about. You can't outscream a narcissist, but you can outsmart them. You just have to make sure when they look in the mirror, they finally see what everyone else already knows. Damn right. The next move was subtle, but crucial. We started planting seeds, just enough to shake their perfect little fantasy world. Claire posted a throwback photo of her and Todd on their anniversary, a photo he clearly hadn't approved. Her caption was razor-sharp sweetness, 8 years, hundreds of memories, and a few surprises yet to come. Red heart. The comments came pouring in. Todd's coworkers, friends, even my wife. Oh well. Happy anniversary. Little did they know it was a funeral march in disguise. Back at home, the atmosphere began to shift. She got quieter, restless. Her eyes flickered to her phone more often. One night, she caught me looking at her screen. She turned it over fast. "You don't trust me?" she said, pretending to be wounded. I smiled. "Of course I trust you." She didn't believe me. Good. I wanted her to feel that unease. The chill in the air. Like the world was watching her, but no one had said anything yet. Because the worst kind of punishment isn't loud. It's anticipatory. By the end of the month, Claire and I had everything we needed. Screenshots, logs, overlapping timestamps. Even a dumb selfie Todd took of their dinner, where the edge of my wife's bracelet was visible on the glass reflection. They built this whole fantasy world thinking no one noticed. Thought they were smarter than us. They weren't. And soon, they'd know it. It was Claire's idea. The dinner party. People like them, she said. They don't fear confrontation. They fear exposure. So we set the stage. Carefully. Like theater. She invited Todd to a small get-together. Said she wanted to celebrate a promotion at work, an actual one. By the way, the woman's a machine. Just 5 people. Me, Claire, Todd, my wife, and one other couple who didn't matter. Placeholders. Distraction. We picked a restaurant where the tables were close and the lighting soft. The kind of place where secrets couldn't whisper without someone hearing. I told my wife we were going to support Claire. She acted surprised at first, then too eager to accept. Like she was covering her tracks by walking directly over them. That night, I watched her get dressed. She took her time. Put on perfume she usually saved for special occasions. Slipped into a little black dress I hadn't seen in months. Smiled at me in the mirror like everything was normal. I told her she looked amazing. I meant it. She looked like the woman I married. Too bad that woman died the day she deleted me from her brother's wedding. At dinner, everything was perfect. Laughter, wine, and side jokes that floated harmlessly through the air like confetti. Todd showed up late, of course, just enough to command attention. He gave my wife a quick look. Nothing obvious. But her posture changed. She tucked her hair behind her ear, straightened up. Claire caught it too. She poured herself another glass of wine and looked over at me. It was time. She stood up, graceful as ever, and tapped her glass with a fork. "I just want to say thank you," she began. "To everyone here, for supporting me this year. For believing in me. Especially," she turned, eyes flicking to Todd, "those who've shown me exactly what I don't deserve." The air changed. Todd shifted. My wife went still. Claire smiled. "And since we're being honest tonight, I figured I'd make a little toast to new beginnings." She opened her purse, pulled out a small manila envelope, and dropped it on the table in front of Todd. Inside? Screenshots. Photos. Printouts of his call logs. One of them had my wife's face in a hotel mirror behind him. A reflection. That's all it took. Todd didn't even open the envelope. He knew. He knew. My wife froze. Her fork halfway to her mouth, like a statue caught mid-lie. Claire sat down. Sipped her wine. Not a tear in her eye. And me? I reached across the table and held her hand. Not my wife's. Claire's. Just for a second. Long enough to be noticed. Long enough to end an illusion. The ride home was silent. She didn't say a word. Didn't ask if I knew. Didn't deny it. She just stared out the window like the city lights were judging her, too. When we pulled into the driveway, she spoke. "I can explain." "No need," I said, cool and soft. "I already heard it all. From Todd. From Claire. From your phone. From the lies you thought were clever." She opened her mouth. I raised a hand. "You made your choice." Repeatedly. So now I'm making mine. She didn't follow me inside. She stayed in the car. The next morning, I served her coffee black, just the way she didn't like it anymore. I sat across from her and slid a folder across the table. Bank statements. Phone records. Copies of texts. Timeline. She flipped through it with shaking hands. "You've been building this." "For months." She looked up. Why didn't you confront me earlier? I smiled. Because I wanted you to feel safe. Complacent. I wanted you to think you were winning. That you were smarter. Then I leaned in. And because exposing you publicly in front of your lover and your friends was always going to be the best ending to your little romance novel. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just looked small. The funny thing about betrayal? It's rarely just personal. It's messy. It leaves residue on everything it touches. Jobs, friendships, family, even money, especially money. The morning after the dinner party, my wife didn't go to work. She stayed in bed, phone in hand, staring at the screen like it might offer her a version of the world where last night didn't happen. Spoiler, it didn't. I sat downstairs with my coffee, reading through the final draft of a new budget plan. One that no longer factored in her spa weekends, her family's renovation projects, or her bi-monthly hair appointments that apparently coincided perfectly with Todd's remote work days. That account we used to share? Drained. My funds moved. Her access revoked. All within the boundaries of the law. Clean. Clinical. Done with a smile at the bank while she was busy working late. At noon, I made a call to our financial advisor. Separate portfolios, I said. And while we're at it, remove her as a beneficiary. Understood, he replied, with the same tone a surgeon might use before amputating a gangrenous limb. I wasn't angry. I was precise. Then I made another call. To the contractor for her parents' condo. Work's permanently canceled, I said. And please forward the invoices. All future contact will be through my attorney. He asked if there was a dispute. There was, I replied. It's resolved now. Then I called her mother. She answered like nothing was wrong. Oh, hi, sweetheart. I was just telling your father. Don't call me again, I said, calm and final. I'm not your wallet. I'm not your punching bag. And I'm certainly not your son-in-law anymore. She sputtered. What's going on? I laughed. Didn't she tell you? Click. That night, she tried to talk. Said she was confused. That things just happened. That he made me feel seen. I looked her dead in the eyes. You know what made me feel seen? I asked. Watching my wife delete me from her life like I was a typo. While your entire family laughed. She opened her mouth to speak. I raised a hand again. You don't get to talk now. You had months to explain. You used every one of them to lie. Then I slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside? Divorce papers. Drafted. Fair. Generous, even. Because that's the thing. I didn't want her money. I didn't want revenge through the courts. I wanted her to look in the mirror every day and know she lost a man who gave her every chance and walked away with his soul intact. But here's the twist she never saw coming. I didn't serve the papers. Not yet. I left them there. Unfiled. A loaded gun with the safety off. I watched her stare at them for hours. Like they might bite. Because that's the power she never understood. It's not in yelling. Not in threats. It's in stillness. In making someone wake up every day wondering if this is the day the hammer falls. And it will fall. But not until I decide. She didn't sign the papers. Not yet. She just stared at them for days, like they might disappear if she willed it hard enough. Left them on the edge of her desk like a threat or a hope, depending on the hour. But every time she passed by them, I watched her shoulders tighten. Like she knew what they represented. Finality. Consequences. Truth with a signature line. I let her marinate in that for a while. Gave her space to twist in her own silence. Let her wonder how many people knew. What they knew. When I dropped the next shoe. Because the truth? I wasn't done. She made this mess in private. She disrespected me behind closed doors, whispered betrayal into hotel pillows. But I wasn't going to shout or slam doors. I was going to open them. Let everyone take a good look. It started with her work. See, people like her and Todd? They get sloppy. Too used to being adored. Too sure no one's watching. But HR? They don't play favorites when the words inappropriate workplace relationship show up, especially when paired with conflict of interest and unauthorized travel expenses. Claire and I timed our emails perfectly. She submitted a formal complaint at 8 a.m. I attached corroborating materials at 8:05. Screenshots. Timestamps. Expense reports. Hell, even a few hotel loyalty statements that showed 2 guests per booking. We didn't even need to embellish. Just the raw truth, stacked like bricks. Let me tell you something. When the facts are strong, you don't need drama. You just need the right audience. By lunch, HR had launched a formal inquiry. By 2 p.m., Todd was escorted out of the office pending review. By 4:30, she came home early. Pale. Shaking. I think I'm being investigated, she whispered. Must be a mistake, I said, without looking up from my book. Didn't you say everything was innocent? She didn't respond. Because lies sound different when the walls are closing in. The fallout came fast. Whispers started circulating at her job, soft at first, then sharper. She tried to act like nothing was wrong, but people could smell the shame. She texted her sister, her mother, asked if she could stay with one of them for a while. Guess what they said? Nothing. Because they knew what she did. They'd seen her laugh when I found out about the wedding. They just didn't expect the blowback to hit them too. I wasn't the only one pulling away. Turns out, when you build your whole world on self-righteous gossip, it gets real lonely when you become the headline. Meanwhile, I was thriving. Got back into running. Started cooking for myself again, real meals, not just throwing something together to feed both of us. I reclaimed my music in the house, not whatever soft, curated nonsense she played to feel worldly. And I started reconnecting with people, friends she always claimed drained our energy, but really just saw through her act. They welcomed me back. No questions. No pity. Just respect. Turns out, people noticed more than I thought. They just waited to see if I'd finally stop letting her rewrite the story. I did. She finally broke one night, stood in the kitchen, tears running down her face, holding the divorce papers. I don't want it to end like this. I nodded. Then maybe, I said, you should have thought about that before you ended it without telling me. She whispered something about regret. But regret's just the echo of selfishness. And I didn't come this far to turn back at the sound of it. It started with the photos. Our wedding album had been collecting dust on the shelf, like some museum exhibit of a life that never existed. One morning while she was out getting some air, I pulled it down and flipped through every page. There we were, smiling under an arch of white roses, her hand in mine, both of us looking too young and too certain. A lie, frozen in matte finish photography. Page by page, I relived a performance. The rehearsed vows, the rented happiness, the family who smiled for the camera and sharpened knives and pried it. I didn't tear them up. That would have been too emotional. No, I boxed them. Labeled the box returns. Left it in the garage, next to the suitcases I knew she'd need soon enough. Next came the house. I started clearing space, mentally, emotionally, physically. The closet? Half empty by noon. Her side untouched, but everything else reorganized. Like I was preparing for the next chapter, one drawer at a time. The decor? All those shared items she insisted on, abstract art, throw pillows that served no purpose, trinkets from vacations I now knew she padded with lies, they all vanished. Donated, boxed, or burned metaphorically in the backyard fire pit. Not in rage. Just renewal. By the time she got back, the house felt different. Lighter. She walked in, paused, and said, "Where's the painting from Paris?" "Gone," I said, sipping coffee. "You threw it away?" "No," I said. "I threw you away. The painting just came with the set." She didn't laugh. She moved through the house that evening like a ghost, touching things, noticing the absence in places where she used to plant pieces of herself. I watched her stand in the living room, where her favorite blanket used to drape over the sofa. It was gone now, replaced with one I picked. A soft gray. Neutral. Honest. "You're really doing this," she said. I nodded. Every day. Then came the tech purge. I changed passwords. Removed her from shared subscriptions. Spotify, Netflix, even the Google Calendar she used to sync our plans. I left a single note in the family account profile. "This calendar has been unsubscribed from your lies." She didn't comment on it, but I know she saw it. The silence told me everything. Then, I reclaimed the bedroom. She'd been sleeping in the guest room ever since the confrontation at Claire's dinner party. I didn't ask her to. She just knew she didn't belong anymore. I replaced the bedding. New sheets. New scent in the diffuser. Her perfume used to linger in the fabric. Now it smelled like cedar and clean breaks. One night, she stood in the doorway while I was folding laundry. Just watching. "You don't miss me?" she asked. I didn't look up. "I miss who I thought you were," I said. "But I buried that person the day you showed me your brother's wedding photos." She tried to guilt me once, brought up the time we'd spent, the things we'd built. "We had something real," she said. "You can't deny that." "Oh, we had something," I replied. "I just wouldn't call it real. More like mutually convenient fiction." Until the plot twist. She bit her lip. I was unhappy. "You were dishonest," I said flatly. "There's a difference. One's human. The other's calculated. The truth is, I didn't hate her. Hate takes energy. It feeds on the space between pain and obsession. What I felt was closure. You don't realize how much of your life you give away until you start taking it back. Time, space, identity. It creeps slowly, like water seeping into the walls, until one day you wake up and realize your house, yourself, doesn't look like you anymore. It's decorated in someone else's preferences, shaped around their moods, and filled with shadows you didn't invite. So I started reclaiming, not with fanfare, with intent. I took a long, hard look at my routine. How much of it was actually mine? The music I listened to? Stuff she said helped her think. The meals I cooked? Adjusted to her diet fads. The clothes I wore? Approved by her eyes, not mine. I started changing all of it. Dusted off my old playlist, rock, blues, the kind of stuff that moves in your bones. Cooked meals I actually enjoyed, without wondering if they were macro-balanced. I put on the boots she said looked too rugged and wore them like armor. It wasn't rebellion. It was recovery. Then I tackled the garage. It was a mess stuffed with half-finished hobbies, boxes of things she'd said we might need, and a shelf labeled seasonal that hadn't been touched in 3 years. So I gutted it. Set up a workbench. Hung my tools. Made space for the motorcycle I'd been wanting to rebuild for years but never had time for. Funny how time shows up when you stop wasting it on people who never valued it. That garage became my sanctuary. The smell of oil, the hum of a drill, classic rock humming in the background. It was more healing than a dozen therapy sessions. Because I wasn't just fixing metal. I was reforging myself. People started noticing the change. A buddy I hadn't seen in months dropped by. We used to hang out, but she always called him immature. Damn, he said, you look 10 years younger. I feel it, I told him. And I meant it. He stayed for beers, and we laughed, really laughed, for the first time in what felt like years. No filtered conversation. No side eyes from the wife in the corner. Just freedom. Then came the cabin trip. An old friend invited me guys' weekend. No drama. I almost said no. Out of habit. Out of guilt. Out of that trained reflex of checking in first. But then I remembered. I owe her nothing. So I said yes. That weekend was crisp mountain air, whiskey by the fire, and stories too dumb to repeat but too honest to forget. We hiked. We fished. We grilled meat over open flames like cavemen with Bluetooth speakers. And somewhere between the third beer and the second shooting star, I felt it. Peace. Not just absence of conflict. Real peace. That dangerous kind. The kind that lets you look back at the life you're walking away from and feel nothing but relief. Back at home, she noticed the difference. You're so detached lately. No, I said. I'm centered. Big difference. She tilted her head. You used to care. I still do, I said. Just not about your opinion. She started trying harder after that. Wearing clothes she knew I liked. Making my favorite meals. Leaving sticky notes on the fridge like it was 2012 again. Too late. You don't get to light a house on fire and then act surprised when someone walks out the front door without looking back. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. She asked, quietly, is there still a chance for us? And I looked her in the eyes. Calm. Steady. There was. Then I stood. And you buried it. Same place you buried my name at your brother's wedding. She didn't sleep the night I told her there was a chance, past tense. I heard her pacing the hallway. Heard the soft rustle of her robe as she hovered outside the bedroom door like a ghost unsure of where it belonged. She didn't knock. She knew better. The next morning, I found her at the kitchen table. Same spot she sat when she laughed at those wedding photos without me in them. But now, her hands were shaking. I read the papers, she whispered. I sipped my coffee. Waited. I haven't signed them yet. You will, I said. Not a threat. Just inevitability, stated plainly. Her eyes welled. Real tears this time. But I wasn't moved. I was past the point where her emotions could sway me. You spend enough time being lied to, and eventually the tears just feel like another performance. I made a mistake. I nodded slowly. You made a series of decisions. Repeatedly. With clarity and coordination. Don't insult either of us by calling it a mistake. I walked away after that. Went into the garage, put on music, and worked on my bike. Grease on my hands, engine in pieces, the smell of honesty in the air. I lost myself in the rhythm of it. The grind. The rebuild. It was everything our marriage wasn't, deliberate, functional, and true. Later that day, I got a text. From Claire. Todd's officially terminated. Found a new place. Filed the paperwork. She attached a photo. Her standing in the doorway of a modest, sunlit apartment, holding a glass of wine. She looked free, like someone who'd crawled out of a wreck and decided to build a life that wouldn't need airbags. You. I sent back a picture of the divorce papers. Now signed. Not by her. By me. I'd already taken them to the notary, waiting for her signature. Claire just replied. She won't like the silence when you finally leave. That's the part they always fear most. Damn right. 3 days later, I walked in from work and saw the manila envelope sitting in the center of the kitchen table. Signed. No note. No final plea. Just surrender. I didn't smile, but I breathed. A full breath. First one in years, it felt like. She came down the stairs while I was zipping up the document folder. So that's it. I turned. That's finally it. I didn't slam the door when I left. I didn't peel out of the driveway like some dramatic teenager. I just drove, slow, deliberate, steady. I dropped the paperwork at my lawyer's office. He asked if I wanted to expedite anything. No need, I said. The damage is already done. I'm just here to file the obituary. That night, I didn't go home, because that wasn't home anymore. It was a crime scene with decorative pillows. Instead, I checked into a quiet Airbnb by the lake. One room. No Wi-Fi. Just a view of the water and a bed I didn't have to share with ghosts. And you know what? I slept. Really slept. The kind where you don't dream. You just heal. Funny thing about letting go, people think it happens with a bang. A screaming match. A final, dramatic door slam that echoes through both your lives. But that's not how I did it. My exit was silent. Surgical. By the time she realized I was gone, I'd already unpacked at the lake. The place was small intentionally. Just one bedroom, a fireplace, and a dock that reached out into still water like it had something to say. No trace of her anywhere. No scent. No earrings left on the counter. No half-finished tea mugs. Just me. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. The messages started slow. First, a simple one. I signed the papers. Hope that makes you happy. I didn't reply. Then another. You're really just done? Still nothing. And then, my favorite. You're being cold. This isn't who you are. She was right about that. This wasn't who I was. It's who I'd become when I stopped being her emotional doormat and started being my own damn foundation. I let the silence speak for me. And in that silence, she unraveled. I heard from a mutual friend, one of the few she didn't alienate, that she'd been spiraling. Trying to act normal in front of her family, who now looked at her like a bad investment. Calling her sister to vent, only to be met with awkward silence. Visiting her parents, who now had a half-finished renovation project and a son-in-law who wouldn't return their calls. That's the part they never prepare for, the after. The quiet days when no one's clapping, no one's watching, and the thrill of the affair is dead, replaced by laundry and loneliness. She tried to reset, I'm sure. Tried to pivot back to independent woman mode, like she hadn't just destroyed a marriage with all the subtlety of a house fire. But the thing about starting over? You can't do it until you own what you burned. She never did. So she stayed there, half in a life that rejected her, half in one that never really wanted her beyond the thrill. Meanwhile, I was building. Not just emotionally. Literally. I took the payout from selling the house, yes, I sold it, and bought land. Not big. Just enough. A plot tucked between trees and sky, where I started drafting plans for a home that would have nothing of her in it. Clean lines. Open space. Honest wood and stone. Every nail, every board, a choice she didn't get to vote on. I was building truth. And truth never needed her permission. Claire and I still kept in touch sporadically. We weren't dating. We weren't trauma bonded. Just two people who survived the same storm and came out of it lighter. She sent me a picture of her dog one morning. Said his name was Chance, short for Second Chance. I sent her a photo of the foundation being poured on my new house. Pouring the past into the ground where it belongs, I wrote. She replied, build high. Make sure she can never look in. And then months later came the final message from my ex-wife. No anger this time. No guilt tripping. Just 3 words. Do you hate me? I stared at it. Closed my phone. Then deleted her number. Because no, I don't hate her. I remember her. Like a caution sign on a winding road I'll never take again. The day they poured the slab for the new house, I brought coffee to the crew and stood at the edge of the lot like a man watching the past dissolve into the soil. It was quiet that morning, mist still clinging to the treetops, the air thick with the scent of wet concrete and pine. No horns. No traffic. No forced conversation. Just space. Real space. And as the sun came up behind the hills, I realized something that hit deeper than any of her betrayals. This was what peace looked like when it didn't have to answer to someone else's guilt. I'd gone with a clean design. Minimal. Raw wood, stone, light. Nothing polished, nothing curated for Pinterest. Just truth and texture. Warm when it needed to be, cold when it had to be. Like me. The bedroom faced the trees. No more double sinks. No more his and hers, anything. Just mine. The closet was half the size of the old one, and twice as useful. It wasn't cluttered with outfits for appearances. No cocktail dresses to compliment. No tie racks I never touched. Just shirts I liked. Jeans that fit. Boots that didn't ask permission to be worn. People started showing up again. Old friends. Ones I hadn't seen in years. They stopped by with six-packs and stories, stayed to help hang shelves, wire lights, break in the new deck with bad jokes and cheap cigars. One of them pulled me aside and said, "Man, I thought you fell off the planet." I just smiled. Nah, I was buried. This is me digging out. There was no grand announcement when the house was done. No ribbon cutting. No Instagram story of new beginnings. Just keys in my hand and a door that opened without any ghost behind it. The first night I slept there, I didn't set an alarm. I woke up to birds, coffee brewing, and my own damn breath, not someone else's silence wrapped in tension. It didn't feel like starting over. It felt like arriving. Claire called once the move was official. "I heard you're out in the woods now," she teased. "What are you, a monk?" I chuckled. "A monk with power tools." She laughed. It was easy between us now. No weight, no sharp edges. Just two people who got through the fire and learned not to bring matches into the next room. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "For the first time, I think I really am." She paused. "You deserve it." And she meant it. Because we both knew how rare it is to build something after being gutted and still come out stronger than before. I started writing again, too. Nothing major. Just thoughts. Memories. Lessons I'd ignored while trying to be a good husband to someone who treated love like a bargaining chip. I kept a notebook by the bed. One night, I wrote. Sometimes we don't realize we've been holding our breath for years, until the moment we exhale and realize the silence isn't dangerous anymore. 6 months after I left, I went back to the city. Not for her. Not for closure. Just to see it. To see if the place that held so much of my old life still had anything left to say. Or if it was just another backdrop I'd outgrown. I walked past the coffee shop we used to go to every Sunday, the one she claimed had the only real espresso in town. The place where I listened to her complain about her friends, her family, her job, and then smile for selfies like her life was picture perfect. It was closed. New sign. New name. Fresh paint over old cracks. Fitting. I passed by her office building too. Not on purpose, it was on the way. But I lingered. Just for a second. The lobby was different. Colder. Less glass, more chrome. She wasn't in the directory anymore. Whether she'd been fired or quit didn't matter. She was gone. Erased by the same machine she thought would always protect her. And me? I walked right by. No pause. No flash of pain. Just another building in a city full of them. That night, I met a few friends for dinner. Real friends. The kind who didn't take sides because they already knew which side was right. We laughed loud, unfiltered, real laughter that echoed off the restaurant walls. No one glanced nervously at their phone. No one tiptoed around truths. We talked about everything. Work, life, plans. No one brought her up. But on the way out, one of them clapped me on the back and said, "You look lighter, man." "I am," I said. Because I was. On my way back to the cabin, I stopped at a lookout point I used to visit when I needed to breathe. Back then, I'd come here when I felt like I was disappearing, like the weight of being her husband, her provider, her placeholder, was sinking me. Now, I just came to watch the stars. I leaned on the railing, felt the wind against my face, and thought about how much space there is between who we were and who we became. She had no idea who I'd become. She never will. And that's the best part. Back at home, I lit a fire. Not because it was cold, just because I could. Because this was my house now. My space. My rules. No one telling me which side of the bed to sleep on, what kind of pillows to use, which wine to drink with dinner. The quiet wasn't empty anymore. It was earned. A letter arrived the next day. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. That careful, slanted script she always used when trying to seem delicate. Inside was a single page. Short. Meant to sound poetic. Closure flavored. I see now what I lost. You were the safe place I kept running from. I hope you find someone who deserves the man you are. I didn't. No apology. Just nostalgia dressed up like honesty. I read it once, then fed it to the fire.